We are back for Hot Take Point Made, League of Legends edition. As we were actually just discussing before I hit record, the charm of this show, notice the way I phrased that there, is either we are godlike, like, by the way, I'm going to do you a favour here, Zabatine. If someone goes way back, I think it was Worlds last year or something, you did have that prediction where it was like, was it the one where like 100 Thieves didn't get through the plane or something? You had one where it was like a banger one. You actually had one where you nailed it. Look, no one could know what way it would happen. But you had one, so in the same way as, Hot Takes giveth, Hot Takes taketh as well. So that seemed sick. You seemed like a Kwisatz Haderach, presciently seeing the future. I will say, Zabatine, that take, that KT Rolster, is the worst team to ever qualify from Korea to Worlds. It sort of seems a bit ass now, mate. Like, listen, I wasn't totally against it. I could see the logic. Low key, they've made you look like a fool. True?
Yeah, true. I mean, it happens, but I still think that on the paper, they shouldn't have performed that way. Like, I really feel like they've reinvented.
You should do a double down, do a hot take like hot take. They shouldn't have done any of that. They're still shit.
But it is what it is, right? I accept my fate.
Okay. Hey, it turns out Thorin was right. Peter was taking advice from one of the disciples. You know what I mean? Like when he showed up, you know what I mean?
Perfect started playing the game. I don't know, like something. Crazy.
I mean, the joke is, by the way, this is how cursed KT is and Org is, boys. I remember thinking after that World's Finals, like, thank God they didn't win Game 5. They might have kept these players. Man, they might have downgraded the roster. Like, what? Like, I didn't think that was possible. Anyway, whatever. Like, I don't think we'll be on this episode, but we'll get, maybe some elements of it. So here's the question, boys. Does anyone want to start with one of their takes, or do you want to start with a fan take? What do we got? What's the room? What are we feeling at the moment? Does anyone have a big take?
I like the fan take to start with.
Yeah.
Because it gets me angry.
And these two fan takes, I've got to say, they're big ones. So here's one that's actually a super nerdy one we'll start with. By the way, if you want to submit your own fan take, subscribe to the Last Video Nation Discord. There's a channel, LOL Hot Takes. Put it in there. If you don't want us to say your username, you just want the take to be anonymous, say so. Otherwise, I will read your username. I might even use it to insult you. That's just my own charm. Jarden Jashari says, pre-drafting all LOL games 1 week in advance will result in the most exciting League of Legends games we've ever seen. Boring League of Legends games right now have little kills or a complete one-sided stomps, which are a result of teams playing fearless drafts that they have no clue how to play. Teams are also winning games more by punishing stupid mistakes. Even Faker this world said his team was just focusing on minimising mistakes, which is an extremely boring playstyle to watch, and that with pre-drafts, teams will be able to understand and execute proactive plays with thorough understanding. Teams will be able to coordinate scrims and practice all aspects of the game with the exact drafts in mind. That will make the daily grind more about mastering specific game scenarios they will encounter rather than general concepts. Side selection can be decided by a coin toss, seeding, or some arbitrary AI elo system for all I care. With the introduction of fearless drafts, that professional game quality has seen a huge decline, and that implementing pre-drafts would more than solve this problem. And then, by the way, as if he knew we were going to wreck him, he goes, P.S. from a piss casual with no skin in the game. Okay, fair. I like the way he even preempted us wrecking him there at the end. Like, he took his own advice. Okay, so boys, it's actually quite an interesting topic because he's tied it to the fearless, but it's not just like if we did this in the past standard draft. What do you think, boys? Who wants to go?
So, here's where I kind of agree, okay? I've always actually liked the idea of Riot doing, like, themed tournaments. So you've obviously heard this news where, like, the coaches might be able to speak during the timeout that's coming in, right? Okay, I always thought it'd be really cool if there was, like, one small tournament a year where the coaches could just speak to the players, like, all the time. And it's like not the biggest tournament ever, but it's just like if Riot had like a more open circuit, just like a more themed tournament. And then like another one would possibly be like every team gets to pick whatever like 5 champions they want, but they're stuck with those 5 champions for the whole tournament. And you run like a small like tournament, like maybe like 4 or 6 teams doing that, right? And you could have these like smaller like exhibition like tournaments rather than like the really bad like all-stars sometimes that they've done during the years. The problem is what he's talking about here is a whole overarching like overchange, right? I do agree like his concern that like the draft fearless games of 4 and 5 have been a lot more decided by like the lowest common denominator rather than like the highest. It's like basically rather than who's actually like the best team, it's like whose person's on like the least worst like pick, or the person who least understands like the game. But I don't think like what he's pertaining to, I don't think is realistic. So basically what it is like the orgs before you go on stage draft the game with like unlimited draft time, and they send like the picks to each other, like, and then they like show up on the day with the draft already decided.
No. I assume what he means, Kiwi, is you just do the draft as normal with the timers, and at the end you have a week before the game is played, though. Essentially, you just do the veto a week in advance. But you have a week to practice those comps now, because you know what the comps are going to be.
Right. Okay, yeah, I get you. Yeah. I've missed the forest for trees.
I think that's what he means, at least.
Yeah, but even then, that like takes like a lot of the sharpness out of like counter picks. Like someone doesn't understand like a specific counter pick, or you know this person doesn't play this like champion, and you've caught them out. All of a sudden, they start getting to practice that matchup, and you know you've got like a level 1, a level 2 cheese. Like to bring it to a more grounded reality, you had your BDS Adams on your Garage or Olaf, like, you know. He was able to do this to 369, one of the next Chinese top players. If Adam was playing on JDG with the Garen, he would have won that game. Like 369 didn't know what was going on. So, but having everyone doing it, this is the type of thing. Like again, like what I was prefacing, I would need to like see it to see all the tendrils or the consequences. The same way as like for Fearless, I would never just do it as a whole wide like league implementation, because I feel like the underbelly, it has its own like different seeded problems. I just wouldn't be able to like, apart from the one I just said there, I wouldn't be able to like pick them out right now.
This is a very interesting, I think it's a very bold take, because you would assume that teams knowing more about situations would be more keen to take them, which I think is kind of the opposite. Because I believe that the magic of League of Legends is the ability for players, and that's why I think coach not talking to their player is very important, is the ability to assess a risk reward for a specific situation, giving all the parameters that are involved within the play, right? Like someone doesn't have a flash, it's a completely different situation than if he has a flash. For instance, you're playing against a Jarvan, your ADC has flash, doesn't have flash, completely different team fight. So for this reason, I feel like the more you give time for teams to prepare, the more they're going to be able to assess risk reward efficiently. And League of Legends is a game that allows you to flee and cross map where you're not stronger, which is kind of what the modern game stands with. And so you end up in a situation where teams that know their risk reward is against them are just not gonna play the plays. And if you get outdrafted, it gets just worse, because the more you play your draft, the more you see that it's bad and you can't do anything. And I do believe that the way the game keeps a balance is because there is so many parameters to keep track of that even if the draft or the situation is against your odds, you can outplay it because you read it better than your opponent, which would disappear with multiple and many repetitions on the same draft a week prior, leading to a match where everybody will play perfect. And whenever there is any like ounce of risk, people would just cross map and be like, no, we played that in scrims 20 times. It's a bad timing. We just give that Drake. This is this weird, maybe we can get it, that actually creates the team fight that you do enjoy. So I do believe that like it's kind of a Dunning-Kruger effect, where you not understanding how the people train makes you think they're gonna fight more, but they're actually gonna fight less. Like imagine T1 versus Genji on this, and this is the most boring League of Legends of all time.
No, by the way, I actually generally agree with the sentiment. This is an example of an idea that sounds good at the beginning, the first 10 seconds of fire. But the more you think about it, I think the worse it gets an idea. Like, first of all, the obvious thing I would say is this. Bro, you're trying to negotiate because you know that Riot and not most of the plebs have just decided Fearless is the future and you can never go back to standard draft. You clearly just want standard draft back, bro. Like, it's just obvious. So since you can't have it, what you've done is you've tried to find like a get around or a loophole or like a compromise that makes it so that you get the execution. Look, it's his main problem is people, it's my main problem with Fearless. People don't know how to play some of these fucking comps that you play the comp. You've never practiced once against another comp you've never practiced against. Like, I actually think that is ass, especially for like the World Championship. Like, you make people look silly. Like, put it this way, I actually do think if you watch the last game of this Worlds, it's a perfect example of what he's talking about. You have KT on a comp with Yorick and a Smolder that hasn't reached the stats, and they're fucking team fighting the whole time for every dragon. It's like, bro, again, if either a coach could talk, like a timeout, and then tell them something, or if they'd actually practiced that comp, they wouldn't play it that way. You'd like side lane with Yorick, you'd fucking wait till the Smolder got online. Like, that was such a winnable game, but the way KT played it, they just played it as though they didn't even know what comp they had, and it was just a normal, like, we fight for the dragons. I said, we are. So that's an example of what he's trying to avoid. The problem I have here is this. I don't think his solution actually does fix it. Like, first of all, one of the actual charms of drafting, in my opinion, but it was better in this sense in Standard. It's the same as Counter-Strike, is the idea that the draft happens 5 minutes before you play that draft. It's why in Counter-Strike, this same thing happened in ESL Pro League a few years back. ESL did a thing where, and I think ECS also did, both the online leagues, they made it so that you used to do the same thing. You would submit your draft like a week in advance. So in theory, you could prep those maps for that team. Now look, I will say that did make there be more upsets. Like, that meant like a little underdog minnow who's playing the big dog can practice all the time for that exact map. But I actually think this ties into what we're going to talk about in League here. I think it is actually like an element of being really good at League to adapt it to a quick draft or a weird move in the, like, if you do a weird move yourself, that comes with a downside that you might not be able to execute it too. There's kind of like there's a give and take to it. And if you leave something up in a draft and you don't ban it, then yeah, the other guy could pick that and completely blow your mind. Isn't that kind of half the charm of League? Like, I'll give you a very classic example right now of a series that his system would ruin, and it's for 2 parts, and it is that classic Season 6 Rocks Tigers T1 semi. Right, one, that MF fucking support is very different if we can practice for a whole week, by the way, and we know it's coming. And then 2, Game 5, when Bengi played that Nidalee, he'd never played Nidalee before. If he just spent a whole week bracking it, it's not really that impressive. He didn't fuck up the game and won it. Like, that's one of the best series ever. I would say that goes against what you're saying. I think that might even be the best series ever, by the way. So I don't think it's as good. Like, I do agree with the general sentiment, like it would increase execution for Fearless, etc. One obvious flaw that I don't think he's thought through is this, though. Bro, maybe we could do this for like LCK regular season, but how the fuck do we draft all 5 comps for a full set BO5 at Worlds when we don't even know there's going to be a Game 4 and Game 5? And also, if we're drafting them all a week in advance, we can't adapt between the games. Isn't half the charm also adapting between the games? Like, how can I draft Game 5 when I don't know what you're going to do in Game 3? I know what comp you're going to play, but I don't know how you're going to play. In fact, you can even argue you can't strategically switch up between the series now because you haven't played the other games yet. So, like I say, I actually don't think it's a terrible idea. It starts as a good one. It just kind of like evaporates the more light you shine on it, you know. I think at the end it's not very good, unfortunately. I get what he was going for, though. Right, boys, who wants to do a take? Who's got one?
Go on, Kier.
I've got one for you, mate. Okay, so I think Nongshim, Red Stars, I think they are going to be the 4th or 3rd best team in Korea. I think they're going to. I'm going to be going to Worlds. I think they're going to be like the team that goes to like Worlds from Korea. So
presumably this is based on the fact Scout just joined, yeah?
Yeah, definitely, yeah, 100%, yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So okay, you ready for it? Okay.
Hit me with it, fuck it out.
No, okay. So they were already 5th in Korea, okay?
True,
right?
true.
KT has theoretically downgraded, right, okay? And, right, okay, there is nothing to say that, like, a lot of the fit in KT doesn't get worse. And I actually think taking away, like, the mid lane and upgrading in the jungle for Nongshim, I think this team's going to be super dangerous. So you've got basically, you're going to have, like, Lahens, Taehoon, Scout, Sponge, and Kingen. Okay. Now, for me, the actual only really dodgy thing there is you've got Kingen like top lane, who's a little bit like pigeonholed, right? But I think Lahens on whatever team he is will give people like a massive like identity. And I think, by the way, okay, Scout didn't have like the best year like this year ever, right? But it was in no way like the worst thing like ever. I actually think this is like a clean slate, like complete refresh. And I think when Scout comes to Korea, they're gonna realize like how good he was, like game to game, like the stability that he's gonna provide this. if you also look at just like the general backline, Taehoon, like Scout, like Kingen is like pretty good. You're also teams last year, some teams last year were made under the premise of not knowing that Fearless was going to be the format all year. And now people are designing it, right? Scout is one of the people that actually gains a lot from Fearless. Now, he didn't have the best individual year this year, but his depth is incredible. And the amount of draft... And one of the biggest problems you had with Nongshim is they wanted to pick certain like compositions and execute on certain compositions, but they didn't actually have like the depth across all the players to like do it. I actually think this like team is going to like really like surprise them. I think bringing Kinging, Scout, and Lahens together, all people who love playing split map, split pushing, side lane situations. I think it's a really good fit. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that like Sponge is like the 100% like certainty of all like certainties, but I think that it's a good thing that he's like moving over to Lahend. The more veteran voices you could put into like these young junglers like ear, like Sponge's problem has never been a single second in his life his hands. His hands are amazing. He's got some of the best hands, I dare say, like in the world, right? His problem is just like decision making based on like his lens states. And I think like people like Lahens who have like loads of experience. Also, you've no idea what the fit's going to be like in Hamwa. Hamwa are like one of the most like spiky, like up and down like teams like imaginable. So I actually think like Nongshim is going to be a more stable team. Maybe not a better team all the time, but a more stable team across the aggregate. I actually think they're going to be like a top 4, top 3 team in Korea next year.
I bet. What's funny is my hot take is as well about LCK, but we talk about it later. I can see like the argument for it. I feel like after the season that Scout has done, it is very hard to defend that. You know, it's like there is always this assumption that like always going back home is gonna try out like home. But I feel like it's very hard for any players, no matter where they come from, because I've seen it in Europe, I've seen it in NA, I know it happens in China and Korea. It's like once you slow down on the volume in terms of training, it is really hard to, you know, get back at like the intensity at which you need to train to become like one of the top player of your region. I think one of the player that this applies to in Korea is Showmaker. We used to be individually and fundamentally like the best with Chovy and just has dropped because I think motivation dropped for him. I don't know like if Scout's gonna be able to. I do believe it's a phenomenal upgrade on the paper, right? Like I agree with you on that. It's just when I see how the grind is on Katie's side, because I believe like it's a team of grinders that don't really care about like adversity. Hanwha as a chance of disaster, I would be on your side. But I think D+ as well has upgraded quite a lot. I believe that like changing aiming and barrel by players that actually want to win and want to prove themselves can change a lot. And I think the top side was already pretty good. I'm not a fan of Lucid, but so are they able to get into the top 4 to qualify the Worlds? It is likely. I think there is a discussion between Katie, which I think had the run of their life on the late part of this year. I think there is a discussion to have with D+. There might be a discussion in the big 3 because Hanwha and T1 has drastically changed. And we know Genji will be part of the teams. I would say Cap. Like I don't believe this take is gonna happen, but I think it's a pretty good take, and it's like it's well sized to make it a hot take, but very hard to disagree with at the same time. What do you think, Thorin?
Yeah, basically, I do think it's a good hot take because, first of all, if you just say Nongshim, people are going to glaze over their eyes instantly anyway. Secondly, if your whole basis is Scout's going to be really good again, well, everyone in League lives off your last game. Like, they're all going to say, he fucking sucks, he's washed, he's shit. In fact, that's even one of the things that low-key triggers me, and low-key even knows because I rant about it all the time on my fucking Discord. People keep telling me, like, Scout this year was pure trash. It's like, he literally was the fucking second-team mid laner in the first split and the third in the second split. Yes, at the end of the second split, he was falling off, and in the third split, he was atrocious, and the whole team collapsed at that point. I'll give give you that. But he actually wasn't from day one of the whole fucking year absolute crap. It's just that people have a hard time remembering all the way back to the first split of the year. And that's just considered the least important one. So with that said, my point here is it wasn't even the purely only this year. Also, in my opinion, I have a saying in esports, right? You never bury a legend until they're done playing the game. As in, if you were a truly legendary player, if you want to keep playing forever, basically, I'll still say there's a tiny % chance you could get really good again. Because I've just seen it happen too many times. If you're a normal player, by the way, you can fuck off. As soon as you get bad, out you go. I don't mind kicking some of those people out of LEC, out of all these teams. Some of them, when they go elsewhere, they don't get... But if you're a truly legendary player, and here's the difference. Scout before that had what, like... a 3 or 4 year run of being like legit top 3 in the world, maybe top 5 at least. He was fucking really good
that's
for a long time.
Exactly.
And I'll give you an example of the kind of renaissance you can have. Bro, let's just think about the difference between last year and this year's ruler. That guy fucking was phoning it in at the end on JDG. Then he came to Gen G. Initially, he even struggled the first split. But by the time you got to Spring, and especially once you got to MSI, he was cooking. He was back to being really fucking good. So, again, I don't think it's impossible Scout could be really good. My problem is this. This is why it's a good hot take. Where he has overreached is the idea they're going to be top 4. Because, bro, like, first of all, how dare you even throw HLE out there as one of the teams they're knocking out? Like, listen, bro, I wouldn't mind if you were saying they're going to be better than D Plus and KT. You can make that argument. The idea they're going to be better than fucking... Listen, I'm not the biggest Guma fan, but that's still a fucking... The guy Chovy! That's still a fucking cracked out roster. So, I don't know about that one. Also, I personally have to say, if I'm looking at the players, bear in mind I can't yet know Scout's level, I probably would edge D Plus to be better. Like, by the way, I actually think Smash is the most slept-on fucking player because of all the stupid T1 fans who had to point out that he's shit and because Gumayusi won, that must mean it was the right move. Like, I actually thought he looked better than Gumayusi when they were trying both of them. So I think that guy has a very good future ahead of him. I already, personally, am a big fan of... Siwoo, the top laner, I actually think he's fucking stud, mate. He seems really good. And again, I will give Showmaker the chance to return to being really good. He also was good in the winter, if you remember. People forget that one. He was pretty good. Look, I'll give you, I don't know how the fuck the support in the jungle will be. I'll give you that much. Then on actually the other part of... The other part of Nongshim is this. Notice he waited. He did that thing, Zabati. This is where you can always tell that the hot take is a hot take. He made all his strongest points first so he could hit you with the impact and so, and you'd be reeling from that processing. Then at the end, he just snuck in all that stuff about fucking Sponge being the jungler. Like, he just snuck that in there at the end as though that's no biggie, you know. Yeah, it's no biggie in it. Let's check notes. LCK team, the league that's all macro, no players, all fucking objective control. Yeah, it's no biggie just having a jungler that might just be like fucking... a solo queue player, basically. I don't know about that one, mate. Like, I actually thought that Gideon guy was all right. He had some promise last year. Like, this year, I mean, there was moments when he looked good. So, I don't know. I'll give you this much. I do think the bot lane can be really good. That part could be awesome.
Yeah.
And then also, you were also really kind to Kingen too. You just made it sound like he's like a fucking side lane specialist or something. It's like, yeah, I don't know. He does do it, but I don't know if he's that good at it. You know what I mean? You know.
Oh, well, my Dragon's Den pitch made it so far. I got some ideas by you, Colin. I got some ideas by you.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. Obviously, sometimes on this show we look good, sometimes we look bad. But I'll tell you what, when we're wearing our Into the Aim t-shirts, we always look good because they're just wonderful designs. Like, I've got the nice pastoral Japanese type one. There's also... They have a bazillion different types of gear on there as well. It's not just t-shirts either, by the way. We often show that on this. They've got all the ones with prints on. They have that bundle where you get like 3 of them for $62 or something. They have the ones where it's just plain, but it's really nice quality. You get 3 of them for 50 something. As always, if you ever use our link, intotheam.com/LFN, you get 10% off anyway, and then that stacks with whatever else. So if you get that bundle, you get 10% extra. And because there is a Black Friday sale on Into the AM, all items are up to 60% off through to the 8th of December. So if you find an item that is 60% off on the site, and then you use our intotheam.com/LFN, it's 70% off for you. So you're also getting an insane deal. They run these every now and then, but this is the time to stock up. And I can tell you, I'm not joking, this is one of the few products that I would 100% actually consider buying if I wasn't sponsored. They didn't send me it for free. Like, they sent me also, there's another thing. Sometimes when I say, do you want the product for the thing or whatever, sometimes I take it one time, then I'm like, I've already got a t-shirt. On this one, I've been asked 3 or 4 times about it. I keep asking every time, because I love them. And I have to say, after using these ones, it felt like fucking suffering and poverty to go back to a normal t-shirt after that. I was like, oh, what am I doing? It's like, I felt like I was in the Bible wearing sackcloth and fucking suffering. But it's just a normal t-shirt because that's how wonderful and lovely. They fit me better than a shit hot take about Larson or Froggen or something. There you go. How about
there
that?
We go. There we
Shout out into the air. Right, okay, I want to do my hot take now. Listen to this, boys. Because here's the thing. One of the hot takes, just glaze himself here. One of the hot takes that was fire was on the last episode. I said BDD was the best player in the world. Boys, did he not fucking continue or did he not continue? He was fucking unbelievable at Worlds. So here's my hot take. Listen, it is a hot take, but in that spirit, join me on this magical journey. Right? It's this first part. That's the cocksucker part of it. I don't care. I have to make it a good hot take. Listen, we could all make it a moderate take. That'd be a shit show, wouldn't it? Moderate take, well made, isn't a fucking show, is it? So listen, the hot take starts with this part of the sentence. Even including players who won Worlds, BDD had the best individual performance in terms of overall impact of any player in the history of Worlds. At this one tournament. I'll give you the 1 second to just process that. Here's why. Now, look, I was cheeky with that first part where I said even with all the winners, because think about all the fucking... You have like Ruler and Prime Faker and fucking The Shy, and look, there's some pretty cracked out players of one world. Matter back in the day. We have some really special players. But here's why I say it, because notice I didn't just say the best level ever seen. I said the most impactful performance of any player. Well, first of all, he was only 1 game from fucking winning that shit. Like, that's mad in itself, boys. Like, he actually was 1 game from taking the whole title. Then, secondly, the reason it's impactful is, look at his fucking teammates. Like, you tell me who played better, and let's look at their teammates compared to BDD's. As pointed out earlier, listen, yeah, you got the odd, like, perfect game that was really good. Doc Dam actually did have a couple of games where he carried. Peter was a meme before this tournament. But I think anyone else who had an all-time great run, they would have had like 2 or 3 Hall of Fame teammates, mate, or the best player in the world, etc. Then also, just look individually. I'm not even trolling. I actually am shocked that BDD, I think it wasn't until he got off stage or something. I'm low-key shocked he didn't just burst into tears on stage after Game 5 because, bro, he was even carrying Game 5. His team just wouldn't let him use the smolder. Like, if I played that series, like, I actually think he actually smurfed this tournament. Like, he for real, by the way, clapped Chovy. He just fucking put him away. And that might be the best player I've ever seen. In the final, he was better than Faker. I don't care. Listen, in the rest of Worlds, Faker was really good. I think, actually, Faker, in my opinion, Faker was the second best player at Worlds, which is why the joke that he didn't even get nominated for the Esports Awards is like, what are you doing? Are you just fucking with me now? Like, is it only if I think he's good, he's not allowed to win? But then when he's not good, he wins. Like, so anyway, I actually think he outplayed Faker as well. Like, I think that was a really fucking nuts performance. And then also, lastly, as well as, like, he had to go through... Listen, the most fake narrative, and you guys know this from the T1 fans, is the victimization of, like, and no one thought we'd do anything at this Worlds. What are you talking about? Everyone I know had you at least top 4. The number 1 was Gen G, yes, of course, an overwhelming favourite. But I know people who had T1 either second best, especially before LCK, obviously, or maybe they had T1. I think most people I know had T1 third after Animal Life. It was Gen G, Animal Life, and T1. So if you go through Gen G, which you just go straight up, and then you almost beat the T1, I think that's also a fucking insane set of opponents to have to face. Like, before both those series, I remember just thinking, like, I don't think it even matters if he plays excellent. How can you win this series? It's impossible. And then also, he was really good even in LCK, but some of these games at Worlds, like, bro, one thing that's really cool if you are BDD is you don't have to fucking wake up in a cold sweat ever over these tournament, mate. You just played awesome. What? You never put a foot wrong and fucked up the game or made some critical error. So there we go, boys. It's a fucking big, spicy one. Who wants to tackle this one?
It's a great one.
Come on.
I have to say it's a great one, but I have 2 candidates. Because I don't want to say, like, you know, the take is great in itself. I just want to suggest candidates to beat that because okay. I do think it's a very likely and acceptable take. Like, including winners, I think it's one of the single, but, you know, you have, for instance, Ben, you know, with his team Suning in finals against Prime Diamond. But I would say 2 players that to me did more than BDD. They actually won the tournament. but I think that there is a performance at Worlds that even ascend above being just the best individual player on the current state of the game. It's shifting or transforming the game for the people that will play the game after that tournament.
Okay.
And I believe that it happened twice at Worlds. The first time I would say it was Mata, which I think really took a team that was like, if you look at the track record of Samsung Galaxy Whites during the last 3 years, even when they were Ozone, they weren't the best team. Obviously, there was the switch from home, the coach of changing mid laners. But the way this team was able to play twice as fast during the late part of its season and win Worlds was really Mata driving the team. And he was one of these first guy, like communications before all that kind of died, the perfect shot caller that micromanages his teammates and stuff. But in terms of playing the game, he really pushed the game forward. And the second one, which I think is for me my candidate for number one, is Keria in 2023. Because if you look at the Swiss stage of 2023, and T1 was on par with the rest of the teams on the game until that point. And it's after quarterfinals against LNG, and the pressure in drafts from the Ashe various bot lanes and the fake pressure on Vision that now it's completely normal in League of Legends. And these threats happening in draft for the next series made them their path to victory actually super easy. And I think it's not in the play, it's the way that he played a way that nobody was able to play at that time. And so it checkmate all the support. And if you look at the track record of 2023 T1, every time it was a support, the enemy support looked like the fool most of the time, and enemy jungle as well. And I think that's because of Keria and the way he's pushed the support game. Now it's included in the game and everybody feels it's normal, but 2023, after Swiss stage, there is a major gap in the way people play League of Legends.
So, I'm torn. Okay, I think the biggest. It's the answer everybody gives, but I've actually watched the games, like, and it's unfortunately one where I actually think the biggest delta is like still Faker in 2013. Like, when I go back and watch it, like, and I go watch the games that Faker's not in, and how bad some of the mid laners are, and then I'm watching Faker, and like, even like with like modernity eyes, it's like you can actually see like how like good or like well thought out like what he's doing like actually is. But I actually think the best version of Faker, the best player I've ever seen, relative to the game that they played at the time, was 2016 Faker.
2015?
No, 2016. I think 2016 Faker was 2016 was Faker was the best player I've ever seen. Relative to what he played at the time, he was the best player, not in a meta that actually suited him. Like, as in, like, I think the meta suited Crown more. As in, like, Crown going into Worlds got like a buff in terms of it being Cassiopeia, Orianna, Victor. And then also the bans being so volatile that Crown basically was always going to be able to get like his mid lane picks, because you had to ban certain picks in the game. And it was ultra late game. Loads of games were going to fucking Elder Dragon like every single time. By the way, T1's speciality in 2016 at no point in time was ever like late game Elder fights and Baron dances. Like they just kind of piecemealed that shit together. They kind of like had more muscle that year, as LS would say, because they had Duke, who was probably just the best laning top laner, and on Echo it was a fucking joke what he could do. But that was the best one. I think BDD would probably be like, I think it's like a top 5. I find it really like, it's cause I'm biased because I've not rewatched this Worlds. So if I rewatched it, I would maybe have a different opinion. I'm really biased tonight in 2024. I genuinely don't think he had a bad game. Like, even the group stage games, it's like, people look at the names on BLG, and outside bin, there's some actual tier 1 griefing going on. Like, it's horrendous. BDD's really high, more the point. Is it the best? I'm not sure, but impact, he might have had like the biggest impact, because I think Knight was probably better in terms of like his individual like play and like what he like did, but in terms of like the plus minus EV of like what he supplied to his team, I think BDD would, just because like even like BDD's floor of like how bad he can be in any given situation, and then those like errors actually showing up, is like incredible. Like, you've seen that one game versus Gen G where he like didn't flash mid lane on Rise and he like died, and the whole game was basically over just from that one mistake in lane. You know what I mean? Like, that's the level of error we're talking about. So, I don't know. When we, like Thorn Esports historian, when you go back and you retract these types of performances, this level is basically just like what you would like count as a win. Now I know for like scrub fans that's like hard to like get into their brain because they go into Wikipedia and they see second place and not first. But like I don't think people understand how hard it is to play.
But it's essentially the opposite of when we're all rude to people like Bowlan and be like, look, we don't care that you won Worlds, but you sort of didn't it to us, you know, like which is true. It's what we think, you know. Or Keegan.
And can I just say, unlike 2023 Faker, who had like the perfect 3 champions, or like Crown, you know, in 2016, BDD didn't have a pillar that he could just fall back on. He was playing bullshit Fearless, where he literally couldn't hold people into draft devices that he could create. He just had to like find stuff on the fly that he could try and carry with. And remember, his teammates had to try and carry with, and he had to just like on the Cubs go. I think he was really, really impressive at this World, and maybe if it was the most impactful, I think you'd be like going between like 1 or 2 names like imaginable. So it sounds mental, but it's not like there's a jar of names that compare.
No, by the way, the Fearless angle's a good one I didn't even make as well. Yeah, he was having to play like Mel and fucking Smolder and shit, like stuff that's not like super easy to pilot. And also, notice how every player you guys all listed has the Hall of Fame teammates. Like, again, who the fuck? Bro, his second best player was Cos. Now, I'm not dissing Cos, he had an excellent Worlds, but I'll tell you what, that's not like fucking,
Peter,
hey, I'm next
to say Peter. Peter played it.
Sure.
Peter played amazing.
He played pretty well. In the final, not so much, but okay. Yeah. Okay. Zabatine.
Second best player is Keen. I just want to mention, I think Keen, this World, played unreal. I think everybody, it's going to be silent because everybody talked about Chovy, but I think Keen deserves.
No, by the way, low key, I actually don't know this year. What did Keen do wrong out of interest? As far as every time I ever watched him, he was just smurfing. He was unreal. Almost every tournament as well, pretty much.
I have a friend which I co-stream with, and his take is Keen is the best player in the world this year.
Oh. Well, put it this way. Here's the other problem that Keen has. Between both Afrika and then obviously that KT Super Team, the problem is Monty hyped the fuck out of him on the KT Super Team. So he did fail. At the time, he was a bit of a choker. I don't think he chokes at all now, mate. I think he's the opposite. He's one of those clutch players I've ever seen. Like, he just always delivers. And his versatility is fucking bonkers. Anyway, do you have a take, Sabatine?
Yes, I do. You know that I root for T1, so this one is going to be good because it can be a T1 stand.
Oh, God. He's not going to pick them to win Worlds again, is he? Jeez. Come on. Where are we going?
I think that Gumayusi was holding the house together because if you look at the track record of teams that won Worlds, very few of them managed to do it with a hyper-aggressive ADC. And I don't think there is a single ever AD-centric team that actually really did a deep run aside from 2017 Ruler, but the game was broken. By switching Guma, who's a weak sider, and exactly what the mid-jungle support T1 needs to actually play the game, to someone who's, like I would say, upset, absorb is kind of a vacuum of resources and wants the game to gravitate around him. I think T1 ended the legacy that they have. And you can change the top laner in League of Legends. It doesn't change much. But changing an ADC from a selfless to a resourceful ADC is actually such a drastic change. And I think T1 will not recover from that.
Oh, so it's the other way around. Actually, even also, here's why it's a hot take then. Because actually, a lot of people, especially if you watch LPL, think Piers was awesome. Like, actually, some people think it's an upgrade, even possibly, as long as they're not T1 fan. Okay, interesting. What do you think, Kira?
So, I said this thing. One of the I was tweeting a bunch about it, just to go over it quickly. I think Guma might be the best ADC to have ever played at Worlds. Specifically, when he plays at Worlds, right? And he is easily a top 10 ADC of all time. But if I was to make up the top 10 best years of ADC, none of them would be Gumayusi. As in, there is no year to end, like from start to end year, where Gumayusi has a year that's his. As in, like, Ruler's got maybe 3, Uzi's got 2, Prey's got 1, you know what I mean? Wei Zhao's got 1, Nami's got 1. All these people have one, but, like, Guma is insanely good at peaking for a specific, like, period and, like, time and, like, big events, and I've rarely ever actually seen him, like, choke, basically. Like, even in the final they lost, like, it was incredible stealing, like, Barons and stuff. I think T1's going to miss that, Zabatine, like, that aspect of his play, the not in the out of game but it realizes itself in game portion of his play. I think they're going to miss that. The thing is like, because of, like, Fearless, like, they weren't getting, like, the normal, like, Guma stuff out of Guma anyway. Like Guma was having to play, like, some games of, like trying to do, like, hyper carry games, and he, like, started trying to pick up the Kaisa. Like, Guma couldn't just play, like, Varus Ashe, like, for a full series, and then, like, pull out a Draven when someone doesn't ban it. Like, yeah, Pays is, like, more resource, like, heavy, but if there's anything I've ever learned from watching people join Faker teams, they learn to play on Faker teams. Maybe it doesn't happen straight away, okay? I'm not saying going into the first split of LCK they're going to be the favourites, but come MSI, come Summer, come Worlds, Pays will be a T1 ADC. That's what you're hoping for, and I think he will be. Like, I think they will. Oh, that's fair. Like, I think they will translate him round, because nobody had seen Pays being an aggressive ADC who was playing for lane and demanding resources come to him all the time, particularly jungle resources, because his jungler was fucking Canyon at, like, who didn't give a fuck, right? But in the LPL, Pays was demanding resources. He was, like, bringing things to him. So I think there's a bit of self-agency there as well, where he realizes he has to be proactive in terms of his own identity. So I have concerns about the out of game stuff, but I tweeted out. I think the fit's a little. It's not a perfect fit, but I think the fit's a bit better than some people realise.
Put it this way, I do think the angle that's the best, because if you notice, half the secret to a good hot take is once people reel from the initial take, you quickly slip in some context that actually just makes it way more reasonable, but you let the big picture. So as soon as you mention that thing of, like, if you actually look, it's kind of true. There's not many teams that basically were all about the ADC that ever won. It's basically Ruler, you're right. Like, even if I go back, like, Piglet was awesome at that first world, but that was the Faker Worlds. Like, it was in the final he got to donk. If you go back, any other team, obviously, like, the joke is JDG didn't win, like a bunch of the other teams had the cracked player never did. Bang basically wasn't doing this the whole fucking time. I always tell Jackie Love, you did win Worlds, but you won like half a Worlds, mate. Like, the other two lanes were so cracked. Like, no one gave a fuck about what you were doing. Of course, you could play all the time pushed up. Like, everyone was getting their shit pushed in 1v1 elsewhere. So, I know what you mean. That's a good angle, because I will say, the reason why I like that angle is I actually do think in T1 that I think Doran blew it at this Worlds. So even though they kept him, if you notice, that's why I keep joking on all my shows. If you listen to the voice comms of what they're doing in that final, they're almost just telling him, like, if you can just hit a tiny bit less hard, we can still win this game. Like, they're almost like coaching him through shit in the bed. So to me, I'm sorry, I think they'll have lost some of the trust in him. He definitely was great at MSI, and there was times when he was really good. Like, I'm not surprised he got that, like, player of the year. He had some moments that were really surprising this year. But I think in that team, it is so likely, this is why his Aberdeen's framing is good. I think it is so likely that they will just make the team about Pays. He will just be set up to carry loads of the games. Like, especially because the notion, this is what's hyping people, that Carrier was like, I want him specifically. Well, obviously, if you're a fucking Carrier fan, that's like, oh, same also. Oh, please, more. That's fucking sick. That's awesome. I noticed, by the way, despite what people think, Carrier wasn't out there from the rooftops like, please, Gumayusi must be subbed back in. He was just fucking chilling with Smash, enjoying the games, mate. So I think if you look at Faker can basically only be good like one part earlier in the year and then at Worlds. Like, I don't know if I don't really believe he's actually storing it up, but he's just sort of like, that's when he's able to peak. He's not able to be the ultimate mid lane of the whole year. Top lane is semi-questionable. You never know what you're going to get from it. I think they're going to make Pays do what he did in JDG, but with a better squad. So if you believe that style can win, they can be better. But I know what you mean. I would agree. In history at Worlds, it never has been about that. It never just has been the ultimate AD. Also, I think that's another example, by the way. You could even make a case to your side. I think actually ADC is the hardest carry role now that Fearless exists, because you don't get that world where you just play we just play each set. People used to make fun of the mid laners, bro. The amount of bot lanes that were just the same. You take this one, then I take it back into you, and then I get it back again. And then, do we need it more than them? And to play 5 champions at ADC, especially with bans, that's fucking hard. So I will say it's going to be hard to have one guy carry. So I like that angle. With that said, though, I actually think Kira had some interesting side angle, because I do agree. The most bizarre thing about Gumayusi is I don't think he's even vaguely close to the best ADC of all time. I know people just do that because the resume hits, but I'm with you. I just think bizarrely he's extremely good at Worlds. It's just mad consistent when he gets to Worlds. At Worlds, by the way, suddenly he has a champion pool. He just plays all this shit. And then also, he's way more ballsy at Worlds, bro. It feels like he takes way more chances and fucking, almost plays up to the rep of, we just win no matter what. So, but I watch all the LCK, but he doesn't do that most of the time. I put it this way, here's what's weird. I agree with Kira. He might be the best ADC at Worlds, but I don't know if he's ever been the best ADC in the world. I don't think he probably ever. At best, he might have been second or third. He's had times where he was very good, but he's never been that. So I like the take in a sense. Put it this way, here's where Zabatine has a good angle. If I was to say I'll meet you in the middle, Piers will be better than Gumayusi, and T1 might even be better, but I don't think they'll win Worlds. So in a way, I sort of meet you in the middle.
The biggest is over.
We can do the handshake.
Because they've been in all the finals, and I do believe that with this single change, it's an open era for the rest of the world.
Yes.
That's the moment. So you guys, if you're owning a team right now, this is the time. They change for a resourceful ADC. Go. T1's not gonna be part of the top 2 anymore.
And also, even though, this is actually where the Faker overrating at some of the worlds ruins it, because aside from this one, a lot of the other worlds, it's more like Faker made the key play or the key call. Bro, most of the times the game was carried, but with the actual clicking of the mouse by Gumayusi in those team fights. It's just true. Yep. And I will say, it's going to be a different vibe in the team now. Because that's the one last thing to say about T1. We've discussed this many times, as some of the insight is. The reason why they're also the most unique team in the history of League of Legends is League of Legends, unlike Counter-Strike, because it's based around strict seasons that end with this off-season and begin here. In Counter-Strike, you only change your roster once you know it's already fucked. In League, you have to just do it at the end of the year, and you have to either stay. Do we gamble staying, or do we get it? And most teams, even Worlds winners, change one player. That's happened many, many times. And so it's the idea you would ever keep 3 or 4 players for 3 or 4 years is nuts. But what you've seen, and this happened in Counter-Strike, if anyone knows the team Virtus Pro, the Polish team, here's the downside of keeping the same players. You're going to notice a similar pattern here. You won't be the best team in the world because you aren't doing the cynical thing of take the worst player out and put a really shit hot player in now, because that'll get your overall level of a team up. But the gain that you get when you're playing other teams that have changed their roster every 9 months and you've kept your roster for 3 years is you're going to have unbelievable team play depth you can reach into and scenarios you've been in and gotten out of, and you're going to almost have, like you've seen in some of these team fights, just fucking telepathic communication where they're not even common, the things they're doing. People just know how to play with each other. That's why, actually, on Takira's point, the real question is not will Piers play like he did in JDG. It's will he adapt to playing in a Faker team? If he can do that, you've got a chance. If he just plays sick as an ADC and he thinks he's still in the LPL, you're going to have a hard time, because T1 isn't about we just fight normally and then win. It's all about objective setups and how do we get a clever edge in lane and avoid a gank and stuff. I know what you mean. I like the hot take. Should we do one last fan take? I've got one more for you boys. We'll end on a fan take. We started on a fan take. We'll end on a fan take. Nadnerb says, listen to this one, boys. By the way, today's just the ADC show, apparently. With people criticising Chovy's World's performance, it has overshadowed Ruler's repeated failures and underperformances of Worlds. He too has been mediocre in many elimination series, going into Worlds as a favourite and rated as one of, if not the best player in ADC by analysts. Notably 2020, 2022, 2023 and 2025, he performed poorly in the final series. He escaped this harsh criticism due to winning Worlds in 2017, but this was before Chovy was even a pro. What do you think of that? Someone's coming at fucking Lord Ruler's head, boys. What do you think of this take?
I love the take. I love the take. I think I think Ruler has a very inexplicable immunity towards the eye of people, to me. Some players in history have that. I know, Smeb, same thing. Nobody even watched the games that Smeb, pulled off when it mattered the most, and he was really like losing most matchups. And I think Ruler this year specifically with Canyon shared the role of like has been the wild card of the team quite often. I've seen like what I would say, in tennis you have like direct fouls. Like he's made so many direct falls, like standing on mid wave, being killed, overextending.
Oh, you mean in English we say unforced error? Is that the term?
Okay, so
it's a good term though. Yeah.
No. Yeah. It's really a mistake that like it's clearly on you. And
that's exactly
directed back for the whole map, right?
Yes.
So if you look by count, right, I would say Canyon probably still has the most, right? Like of like straight making the team, fall apart for a piece of the game. But I think Ruler is number 2. And it's very interesting to me because most of this is usually fixed by silence being so well set up by Genji. So Chovy gets the farm, Keen gets the farm, someone dies on mid, they lose something, and then they re-stabilize the game, and then Ruler can pop off in the team fight, and everybody then praise Ruler as like one of the best. But they just omit the part where he dies like 3 times, and if he doesn't, the game is already won. And I think that throughout the years, I've never understood why people don't assess skills for player more efficiently, because I do believe that on Enchanter and Hyper Carry meta, nobody can discuss the supremacy of Ruler. I think he's shown over the year. Maybe Deft can discuss, but that's it. But as a well-rounded player for any team, I do think Ruler is a little lackluster. That's why I even prefer Guma myself, because I do believe that when the game doesn't revolve around him winning team fights, he has a lot of fundamental flaws, which I think put a huge setback for his team as a player.
You always come in with the silent hot take, Zabatine, and then like I come in at the back. Like, here's the thing, okay? Like, I'm not even just trying to be like a Chovy like outright like defender. There is obviously a problem with like Chovy and like his teams when it comes to the semi-finals, particularly of Worlds. It might be one of the most famous mental blocks of all time I've ever seen in like esports. In terms of like the decision making, what's going on in the games, and mistakes that happen, right? But on an individual level, I think Ruler and Canyon were worse at this Worlds. Chovy had the worst game where he got blown out by BDD, right, on Azir versus Orianna. By the way, I was actually talking about this with Thorn and someone in Insight. I said, Genji do this all the time. They hand Chovy unplayable like draft situations, like the draft that he had to play into the Poppy and the Azir, right? And they're like, okay, you can't make any mistakes. And LCK Chovy doesn't make any mistakes, and he actually manages to do it, and is why he's hailed as like one of the best players in the world. But Worlds Chovy makes some mistakes, and it'll cost you a game. But if you go and look at where the other losses came from, like Canyon is just atrocious in terms of like the thing is like you have these lanes where okay, my lanes are not going to get ganked for. Okay, every jungler in the world wants that. Oh, I'm going to have 3 winning lanes, or I'm going to have 2.5 winning lanes, or 2 winning lanes. Everyone wants that. But Canyon's justification is my decision making and my team fighting and my farming is so good, I'm the one that deserves to be blessed with that like situation. And I don't think Canyon, has been that player for about a year and a half. I think Tarzan, I think Kanavi, I think Owner. I think some Western players on certain carries have been better than Canyon in recent years. Maybe not as like a full package, but I genuinely think the overall game has like suffered. Chovy gets a lot. He's the big brother of the team. He's like the identity of Genji, and so you want the praise. You've got to take the fucking. You got to take the dumps, mate. Like, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, if you're the man and you're not the man at Worlds, it comes down on you. The guillotine takes your head off. But the actual analysis is like Ruler and Canyon weren't that like good. At Worlds they didn't really hold up their end of the bargain the whole time either. In terms of being like the best in their role, whole like super team like thing. Like it wasn't very super.
And I think it's throughout the year. I agree with the take in the sense of throughout the year. I think Ruler hasn't underperformed when people expected him as number 1. Really, like it happened multiple times. Like I think Uzi never disappointed. Even in the losses, for instance, he would lose, his team would lose, and everybody would be like, "Oh, he was the best player in the I don't think it does apply for Ruler the same as often.
But it is, so I will say, he's definitely not an ADC that was ever being told, hey, you're the weak side, you get nothing. Like, that was never happening. Like, because they listed all those years, while you guys were talking, I was looking up some of those years to see what did he get in the draft. Bro, in a lot of these series where he loses at Worlds, they're just drafting him all as best champions. Like, exactly his best win rates, most wins, like the stuff that's comfort. So that is an angle I do think people really underrate in League, is if you're the guy that basically we say we're putting the eggs in your basket, you get treated differently. It's like Kira says, if you then lose the game, it's different if we just draft for someone else and you take a normal champion at the end of the draft. We can talk about that. We can look at those ones. So no, but it is way. I will say it is underrated in that sense. Like essentially the main hot take is right. The Chovy, and it's not even always a pure choke. Sometimes it just doesn't carry the game. Chovy not winning, basically, it just gets all the headlines. I mean, the joke really is, forget Ruler. Canyon did skate by on this one. I think Canyon was shit for the last half of the year, bro. Like, but because they won MSI and won LCK anyway, it didn't matter. No one cared. Everyone just looked past it. And in fact, that's an example of it. There's an example of a fake Gamepedia. Someone will look back on Gamepedia and go, wow, Canyon was cooking in that year. It's like, nah, it was actually one of his worst years, mate. He had years like in Dam 1 that were better than this when Dam 1 wasn't even good. Like, sometimes he was the dude. So I do think Ruler definitely... Here's the problem, though. Ruler doesn't, like, in the game. He just doesn't carry some of them. That's the thing, which is, like, unfortunately another thing about ADC. This is why certain players like the Upsets and the Reckless get the criticism. You can, if you're an ADC and you're just not feeling it or you don't see the angle, you can sort of pussy out in a way that means you won't actually look like you cost them the game because you won't die on the screen. You won't be the one that gets caught and then fried, etc. But, like, I'll give you an example. He is one of the players that sometimes I do worry. I know what you guys mean. He definitely could be super aggressive if he has the right champion, the whole team set up, and it's all about this team fight. But if you just put him in a random skirmish, sometimes actually I do think he will just let the fight happen and he won't have that much impact. Whereas like even some maniac like a Jacqueline would have flashed in, you know what I mean? He would have just gone for it and sent it and said, hey, if I die, I die. Sometimes I do feel like Ruler does that Korean thing of like, I'm going to back off now. I'm not feeling this one. Which is like, again, so actually, you know what? I maybe wouldn't go as hard as this guy. But I do think it's a valid take. I think there's definitely something. It's pretty sweet. It's good food for thought.
I have a last, just to add on this. I think Dogo was a better ADC than Ruler at Worlds.
Why has he done that? Why has he waited? Why has he waited till the end of the episode to pull that out? I know. It's the idea that we could have ended the episode without him saying that. So the hot take, accidentally, is that this World's Dogo was better than Ruler. Dogo was pretty cracked. I can't lie. He was very good, I have to say.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's for me, there's absolutely no discsion about it.
Put that in the headline, editor.
100%.
Put it in the headline, editor.
You got any more for us, Aberdeen? Driver better than Zeus? You got that about that one? Would you call it?
I do not. But this one I have.
Lavrov better than Korea? You know what I mean? On Engage.